One of the sales strategies that's working well for me and that I plan to do more of in 2025 is free webinars, or what I like to call helpful masterclasses. If you want the entire strategy from idea to implementation, especially how to do it the soulful way that feels aligned with your values and sells your offers, then my masterclass magic course is currently on flash sale until January 24th with a live Get It Done week starting January 27th. Visit ruthpoundwhite.com/mm to find out more. That's ruthpoundwhite.com/mm. Have you been overwhelmed with the noise lately about what is no longer working and what we should all be doing instead? In this episode, I'm going to offer a different perspective, plus share the exact strategies that are working for me and my clients and how to support yourself to make them work for you too. Welcome to the Soulful Sales Show, where we talk about believing in the value of your offers, getting them in front of your right people, and selling more of what you do in your unique way. Hi, and welcome back to the Soulful Sales Show podcast. So today's episode is about what's still working to sell our offers in 2025. And I'm going to say right off the cuff that this is probably not, I'm probably not going to say what you expect me to say. I'm not about to reel off a long list of strategies and tactics that are working and a list of ones that aren't, because it is so much more nuanced than that, especially thinking about my own journey in 2024 based on how I was feeling and what was actually happening behind the scenes. And I'll share what I mean by that in a sec. So this episode is basically going to have two parts to it. The first is going to be my whole philosophy around how we decide what's working and what isn't, and some really key learnings and shifts I've had from actually looking at my numbers and properly looking at my unique journey over the last couple of years. And then the next part of the episode is going to be me sharing things that are working for me, strategies that are working for me, and why you might not think they are working for you, to really highlight this point. Plus, you know, there are so many other strategies that are working for my clients as well that I'm not using that I will touch on as well. So let's start with my journey and the realizations I've had over the last few weeks. So in 2024, all years in online business, there are often things that people are saying are not working anymore, or things that people are saying are working and we should all be doing, right? It can be so overwhelming. But I found that this noise was really, really loud in 2024. There were a lot of people saying sales are down across the board, things aren't working the way they used to, all of this stuff. And I think what actually happened is a lot of people experienced a bit of a pandemic boost in their online businesses, and things have been changing a bit and leveling off a bit, and people maybe have been thinking carefully about what they're buying and stuff like that. But the patterns that people are talking about are not true across the board. They're not true across all niches. They're not true across all businesses. Anyway, the way I was feeling in 2024 was definitely buying into all of this noise and the stories. As much as I try, and I am a coach and I do the mindset work and all of that, I have been really upfront in sharing with you all that 2024 was a tough year for me with my mental health. And I think when your mental health isn't at its best, it is so much harder to, be discerning about this kind of noise that you're taking in. It's so much easier to sway towards the negative in your thinking. So all year, my story was business is not going well as it has been in the past. If I was doing these things that I'm doing in 2024, if I was doing them a few years ago, I'd be raking in the money, right? And some of this stuff may be true to some degree. And I've certainly had conversations with a lot of business owners about this. And I know that a lot of people have seen, shifts in the way things work for them. So I'm not discounting that. But what happened is when I actually did the numbers for 2024, I had a better year in 2024 than I did in 2023, despite all year my story being things aren't going as well this year. And that has just been the biggest wake-up call for me in terms of how much our mindset affects, how we think we're doing. And then if I have that story about it not being as good of a year, like what are the actions that I didn't take as a result of that? What are the things I didn't try as a result of that? What could have been possible for me if I had noticed that sooner, right? This mindset is really, really important. There's also something else that I kind of noticed about my own reflections on my business. And this is this story that I should be further along than I am right now. Can you resonate with having this kind of feeling as well? You look at other business owners and what they're doing and the timescales they've achieved it in and thinking, I should be further along than I am right now. But here's the other wake-up call that I had from looking at those numbers and realizing I had a better year in 2024 than 2023, is that it's more important to compare myself to myself than other people. It's more important to look at my own situation and what has been going on for me throughout those 2 years. The truth is that I have done a massive shift when it comes to my income sources. I used to make most of my money in my business and serve most of my clients in my business through high ticket, one-to-one coaching and group containers. I have done a complete flip on that. I've made a complete shift towards self-study courses and memberships with, I still, do live elements to them, but much, much reduced in terms of calls in my schedule. And I think I was also telling myself the story that meant I couldn't be earning as much money as I, in fact, was. And I guess I feel like I hope that this is coming out clearly because I have a clear sense of it within myself and I'm not sure if I'm explaining it the way I exactly want to explain, but comparing myself to myself, looking at my own circumstances has been so much more powerful to me than looking at what everyone else is doing and looking at what everyone else is saying, right? And the other thing that I'm taking away from this is that I want to unsubscribe from the noise. I am so done with people's accounts that are based on just saying, such and such is dead. Here's my strategy that works instead. I'm so done with basing my business decisions on that. I think I've been done with that for a few years, but it's become very, very clear to me now. If people's marketing is based on stuff you're doing that isn't working and their thing happens to be the magic thing, that I'm unsubscribing from that. I've already deleted my social media apps from my phone, specifically Threads, because I find that, I don't know if it's just the people I'm following, but Threads I thought felt very noisy with like, you're doing this wrong, you're doing this wrong, you're doing this wrong. I don't want to be in those spaces anymore. So yeah, I feel like our businesses are based on way more than whatever is the hot strategy right now. Our businesses are based on strategies that, yes, we change and we tweak throughout the years, but we don't just try one thing one year and then throw it out the next year. It is exhausting. And the truth is that everything that one person is saying is not working anymore. There is an example of another person totally rocking that thing. Okay, so that is the general message of this episode. And then I'm going to next get into what is specifically working for me and reasons why you might be doing the exact same thing and thinking it's not working. Okay, so in the first few episodes of this year on the podcast, I've talked a lot about things I'm going to do more or less of, my selling ins and outs for 2025. So I have touched on some of this stuff already, but I'm going to talk through it through a slightly different lens in terms of when it's working and why it might not be. So there are certain strategies that I feel are really, really working for me at the moment. And several of these are things that have been working for me for years. And I should say, I'm also willing to experiment. I'm also willing to get better, look at the numbers, see which bits of it are working and tweak the bits that aren't, right? So the first one is laid back email-based launching. This is actually something I only really started doing in the last 2 years, but it has become like my bread and butter. It is so simple. It works really, really well with my health and energy levels. Basically, low-key launching, just pre-scheduling emails over like 5 days, doing a really simple launch, not doing any lives, not faffing around with anything that takes up any energy, basically. So it's really, really working for me. And I can see from my numbers that it's brought in a significant percentage of my revenue in 2024. And here's why you might be doing it yourself and thinking it's not working and wanting to throw it out. Basically, you might be sending the emails and no one is buying in your launch. And I would say that often this comes down to, firstly, being willing to launch and relaunch your offers, because no launch is the same. And sometimes, for whatever reason, one launch to the next just doesn't do as well. But often it also comes down to not focusing on growing your list consistently. If your list is not growing and you're doing a really lazy, laid back launch to the same people over and over again, it makes sense that sales might plateau. All right. So focus on growing your email list. There are so many different ways to do this. And actually, my episode next week is totally focused on my email marketing goals for 2025. So listen out for that if you want some help with email marketing. But yeah, be willing to grow your email list between launches. Be willing to look at your emails through a curious lens and ask yourself whether the call to action is obvious. Ask yourself whether you're really speaking to the transformation and the outcome of your offers, and tweak and repeat. Okay. The second thing that is still working for me, and these are strategies I have been doing for years, like ever since my son was born, and he's just turned 7. I am doing webinars and challenges. Actually, caveat to that, I haven't done a free challenge for about a year, but I have been doing paid challenges and I have been doing free webinars. I am still seeing really great results with webinars and challenges. I think that the success with this, even though some people, there's definitely been loads of stuff about webinars and challenges not working. I've definitely heard the noise about that. But I think the reason it is working for me is because of the connection I cultivate with my audience, is because I'm genuinely giving them something valuable, whether they buy at the end of it or not, right? And I have also seen clients who are doing webinars and challenges and not getting the sales they want, and writing off the strategy and saying they don't work for me or they're too stressful for me or whatever. That is not the mindset to be looking at it if you want to get them working. What to do instead is to keep focusing on that connection you're building with your audience. Celebrate even the smaller numbers, because nothing beats doing a challenge or having people on a webinar and really speaking, person to person to them, having that kind of live element. And again, it's a case of being willing to repeat and tweak. Look through a curious lens and ask yourself, was it actually clear that this webinar didn't cover all the steps and my offer would cover more? Was there a natural lead in? Yes, you want to make it helpful in and of itself, but if you include absolutely everything, what you'll often find is people are like, oh my goodness, I loved your free thing. Perfect. I'm going to take that away and do the thing without buying your offer. What you want to be clear about is the boundary about what you're giving away for free in the webinar or the challenge, and then what you're then inviting people in for the paid offer. And one thing that I really worked on to improve my own results with webinars and challenges was the sales portion of it. Because yes, it is not a complete pitch fest, like just selling the whole time, but I am intentional about inviting the right people into my paid offer. I really worked on improving that sales portion of the free event. This is something I go into in detail, by the way, in my Masterclass Magic course. It's all about creating and running free webinars, which I call masterclasses. And yeah, I go into detail about how to improve the sales portion of it, how to feel good about selling, how to feel confident. I also go into all the other steps of running a free masterclass, like what the topic should be, how to decide what's included, how to promote it, what to do afterwards, all of that stuff. It's actually on sale right now, and I'm running a live round starting on the 27th of January. The sale ends on the 24th. So go to ruthpoundwhite.com/mm if you want to hear more, want to learn more about masterclasses. But yeah, again, it's about being willing to learn and improve. It's not about writing off a strategy just because it didn't work that 1 or 2 times for you. The next thing that is really working for me at the moment is soft selling behind the scenes. So adding, order bumps to my offers, adding tripwires to my free lead magnets, adding paid upgrades when I'm part of a free bundle. When I did my numbers for 2024, I added up all the revenue that came from these specific sources, the kind of extra sales. And it was, I can't remember the exact number, but it was something like 15-20%. It was really significant. So if you are not adding these things to your offers, then make it a priority in 2025. But again, if you are adding this stuff and thinking it's not working, there can be so many reasons for that. For example, if you are part of a free bundle and people aren't grabbing your order bump or aren't paying for your upsell, it makes absolute sense that when you're in a free bundle, conversion rates are going to be lower. But if you have a decent chunk of people, like 50, 100 people go through your offer and you're still not selling anything, change it. Try a different offer. It's about being willing to experiment. Can you find the theme in this episode? It's about being willing to tweak and experiment. Another thing that is working for me is having lower cost offers in my offer ecosystem. So like I said, I think I said this earlier, in the past, my business was really, really reliant on the higher ticket offers, and my energy I just knew for health reasons, basically I couldn't continue to coach at the level that I was. So I shifted a lot towards lower ticket, more self-study offers. And it has been really working for me. It has really helped my energy levels. It has really helped me to find a way to invite more people in to become paying customers, especially when I'm taking part in summits and bundles. And a lot of people naturally go on to buy my higher priced offers as well. Now, where you might think that low ticket isn't working for you, and you could flip this and if you mostly sell high ticket, you can flip this and see how it applies there as well. But maybe low ticket isn't working for you if you don't have the audience size for it. Maybe you need to focus on growing your audience so you have the volume of sales that you need. You also probably want some offers that are higher priced than total low ticket. Do you have any higher priced offers? Do you have some offers that you probably, if you're really honest, should be charging more for, but you're afraid to? These are the kind of things you need to look at if you feel that your pricing isn't working for you. And again, like I said, you can flip this, rewrite these steps to fit a higher ticket business model as well. And above all else, what is working for me is staying in my lane and focusing on what works for me. Now, I don't stay in my lane to the point of ignoring what's going on in the outside world and just being really stubborn about doing the same thing over and over again. I don't believe in doing the same thing over again and expecting different results. I really don't. But I also don't believe in abandoning what you've been working on and jumping from trend to trend to trend. That is a recipe for burnout, exhaustion, and never letting any part of your business actually have the time it needs to grow to the level it needs to grow. And again, I know that people will often doubt what works for them and think, well, what works for me isn't working, so I need to jump ship. I need to try something else, or it all feels too hard. But the truth is that, a lot of my job as a business coach is to help you have the staying power, to help you have patience, to help you cultivate the belief, to help you see things through properly. We do need to give our offers a chance. We do need to give our marketing a chance. We do need to give time for our email list to grow. There is so much messaging out there about short-term magic happening and quantum leaps and all of this stuff. It absolutely is possible. And I have seen throughout my 16 years in business, times when I've had massive jumps that I totally didn't expect out of the blue. Most of the time, though, it's been a slow burn and a slow build. And sometimes you're not even noticing how much it is growing until you take a moment to stop and smell the roses and see, actually, I am further ahead than where I was last year. I am doing this thing better than I was last year, right? So it does take time, okay? And the other thing that I think is working and really important across the board is helping people get to know us personally. So I recently opened applications for my upcoming Mess of Success Summit. I had so many incredible applications, and on the potential speaker info page, I specifically stated that I did not want this to be a generic kind of teaching summit, that I want this to be personal, that I want this to have vulnerable, honest conversations. And I was surprised, frankly, at how many people clearly just put it into ChatGPT and copied and pasted exactly what ChatGPT gave them. I was surprised at that. I'm not surprised that people are using ChatGPT. I use it too, and I know it's really, really helpful for a lot of us neurodivergent people. But to copy and paste from ChatGPT into a summit application where I specifically asked for something really personal is not the vibe that I was looking for. And I really want to encourage you, if you are copying and pasting from ChatGPT in your emails, in your content, in your offers, in applications, please be careful about how you're using it, because if you lose the personal essence of who you are and your voice in your stuff, then that is not going to help your business. People want to get to know the person behind the business. And in the age of AI, this has never been more important, okay? So that's what's working for me. But I also wanted to add on to that list what is working for my clients, because I'm not really doing social media marketing, but I have loads of clients who are totally rocking it on social media. I don't really do DM conversations to sell my offers and get people on calls. I don't really sell that way anymore. I used to. I have clients who are absolutely rocking that strategy, but I choose not to do it. I don't do many live videos. I wanted to have a YouTube channel, then decided against it in 2024. I have clients who are totally rocking it with video and YouTube. I used to blog. I used to use Pinterest to get traffic to my blog. I haven't blogged for years. I have clients who are blogging still in 2025 and totally rocking it and having amazing results. So I guess the point of me adding in this bit to this episode is to say that there are things that work for everyone. I choose not to sell on social media anymore. This is a fairly new decision for me. I don't do the DM conversations and getting people on sales calls. I don't have my YouTube channel except for my automated podcast feed. I don't blog anymore. Does that mean those strategies aren't working? No, it absolutely doesn't. I have clients who are rocking at every single one of those. All it means is I am not the coach who can guide you step by step with those strategies. That's all it means. And I think that, again, this goes back to the point I shared at the beginning of this episode. We just have to be careful who we're paying attention to. Like, I could easily come to you and say, laid back launching is the way to go. You know, selling on social media is dead. It's all about the email list. Come and buy my course about laid back launching. I do not believe in marketing that way because it is not the truth. It so is not the truth. Laid back launching is absolutely working for me. I do believe it will work for you if you have low energy, if you are focused on growing an email list. But is it the only way? Absolutely not. Okay. So when it comes to what is working or not in 2025, above all of this, the lessons of this episode are you got to test stuff. You got to find what works for you. You got to keep trying and tweaking. Don't just do things once, twice, 3 times. You got to keep trying and tweaking and looking at it through a curious lens. This is the mindset that you have to make things work for you in 2025. You have to believe that it's worth you trying because one day it is going to be the way you want it to be, and probably already you're already doing much better than you think. And the second part of the mindset is that instead of getting afraid and wanting to throw it out and stop everything, you need to get curious, right? And let me tell you a story that really highlights this. I mean, I already shared my story about how I felt about my numbers in 2024. But this other story, what I noticed about my podcast downloads in 2024 is that in the summer, or it was like August or something in 2024, they suddenly dipped massively and they didn't seem to be coming back up. And I was thinking, wow, is anyone actually really listening to my podcast? Should I even bother with my podcast? I started to get really in my head about this podcast. And then 2 things really shifted my mindset about it. The first thing was I read an article about podcast download numbers and, you know, what percentage of podcasts get different download numbers. And I realized my podcast is in the top 25% of all podcasts based on the lower numbers that I was seeing. And that kind of blew me away and made me kind of reframe the way I was thinking. Like, instead of thinking, oh, I wish I could be speaking to more people, I started thinking, wow, isn't it amazing that this number of people are showing up and listening to my podcast every week? But then something more wild happened a little while later. One of my podcast listeners emailed me, and you know who you are, and thank you so much for this, to say that my podcast had not been updating on Spotify since, you guessed it, that August when I noticed the numbers had declined. I looked into it, and basically the old host that I used to use, I had a redirect from them, but they had shut down. So the redirect feed link had stopped working. And I just couldn't believe this. And it was just such another really important reminder to stay curious about things instead of making a decision. The decision that I was sort of starting to make was I should stop my podcast. No one cares. If I had been curious about this, which eventually I was because I looked up that stat, then I found out the real reason and like, oh, it's not as clear as I thought it was. I thought it was a fact that people weren't interested. It absolutely wasn't. So yeah, curiosity, not fear-based decisions. And yeah, giving things time, committing to seeing things through, I think, and tweaking and experimenting is the message of this episode. So yeah, I feel like this episode has been a bit of a rant. I hope it has been a loving kick up the bum for some people. I hope it has helped you see where things are working or where there is room for you to make even a small tweak that could make a difference. And just remember, any strategy is working for someone right now. There is someone who is rocking it on Instagram, despite everyone saying the algorithm, no one sees my posts. There is someone who is, starting a brand new social media account today that is going to absolutely smash it. There is someone who's been doing it for years that is struggling with it, but maybe it's not the medium for them, or there's someone who's feels like they're struggling with it, but it is the medium for them, and actually they need to see what's right in front of them, the people who are there listening, rather than comparing themselves and thinking about all the people who aren't, right? So I hope that in 2025 we can tune out some of that noise. I certainly will be intentionally muting and unfollowing and deleting social media apps to support my newly rediscovered belief that it is working for me and what I'm doing is working, and I get to tweak and improve it in 2025. Thank you so much for listening to another episode of Soulful Sales. If you have a moment to rate and review, know that it really does make a difference. And if you'd like to carry on the conversation, then you can connect with me on Instagram at Ruth Poundwhite, sign up to my newsletter at ruthpoundwhite.com/newsletter, or my personal favorite, join me inside the low ticket membership at ruthpoundwhite.com/membership. And keep doing what you're doing, because your work really does matter.